As we get closer to the end of the second quarter, we're now seeing more and more institutional analysts who are brushing off a potential lower Q2 deliveries for Tesla and are now becoming much more bullish with outperform price targets. We have the firm Baird, who are saying that attention is increasingly shifting to longer-term items like the robotaxi reveal on August 8th. And we also have Stephen Gengaro, analyst for Stifel, who believes Tesla is now in a good position for strong multi-year growth. I've got Brian White joining us. He's traveling the world, but he has his YouTube channel, FutureAza, and he's still dialing in when he can. Thanks, Brian.
Great to be here, Herbert. Yeah, I'm in Irvine right now. Just yesterday, I was in San Diego where I dropped off the 4680 battery cell that Monroe & Associates had given to Jordan Giesecke, and you can't put those on an aircraft because of their lithium batteries, so they needed someone to courier it, and I was just the guy.
You're the mule, but you had the 4680 batteries and you bring it in so that they can break it down and understand it better. This is what the Tesla community does.
To the molecular level.
Oh, crazy. Okay, well, you're going to be part of history, I guess. Maybe, who cares? Thank you so much, Brian. This is good. Okay, so let's talk about this news about Q2. So this is quite interesting that institutional analysts, surprisingly, they're now becoming more bullish about Tesla. Here is, Baird is now saying an outperform a 280 price target despite the Q2 delivery miss. So they said Tesla will likely report Q2 deliveries on July 2nd, right? Which we believe will be lower than current consensus estimates. Despite this, recent conversations with investors and headlines lead us to believe attention is increasingly shifting to longer-term items with an important date approaching in the robotaxi unveiling event on August 8th. This is an institutional analyst. They're actually thinking that this narrative is changing away from cars. It's important. Q2 deliveries are still important, but we note that focus on near-term numbers is likely less intense than it was in Q1. We are buyers following the Q2 delivery report and continuing to see Tesla as a core holding. Isn't this great? They're already expecting Q2 to be low. They say it doesn't matter. The narrative has shifted. What are your expectations for Q2? I know that you follow this very clearly, at least on the production side, less on necessarily the deliveries. What's your estimates at this point?
So I was at, I think, 446 last time we talked. I'm at like 438 now. I would have to check the actual numbers. I have revised downward because the slowdown in Texas was stronger than I had realized. I went back and reviewed some of the footage, and I'm not seeing as much production out of Texas as I would like. Years ago, it was easier to predict production and deliveries because all you had to do was understand the capacity of the buildings and then add a few parameters on top and you'd get there. But now these buildings are running below capacity. Fremont, I believe, is around capacity except for the S and X lines, which I believe are a lot slower now because they have a new halo. Everyone wants the Cybertruck instead. Not everyone, of course, but a lot of buyers are vastly more interested in Cybertruck than S or X. In Berlin, we're not seeing them running at full speed. Shanghai is doing great, which could be the saving grace. We saw fantastic numbers this week. It was the biggest week for registration of 2024. That's going to help. But what we're looking for going into the next quarter, it's going to be good news. Moving after Q2, we're in the summer. That is the best buying month for autos. There's still been lower sales than historically across the industry, which means there is pent-up demand. Old vehicles are lasting longer than they have before, but not infinitely so. So people will have to buy vehicles. And Tesla is continuing to improve their cost controls. Their cost of goods sold continues to fall, which means the spring is just loading. They may be able to afford to maintain high margins while reducing retail costs. We've seen that the tax credit has returned for the long-range Model 3. That's very likely to induce some new sales that wouldn't have otherwise been there. That is a very big discount. It is now cheaper than a lot of very good cars out there. And it's cheaper than some so-so cars as well. It is a very affordable, amazing machine. You've had a chance to see it yourself. And so that's just going into it. We've seen what certainly appears to be the absolute end of interest rate increases. and we could still expect to see one later this year, a reduction in the interest rate, which would make autos more affordable. So there's a lot of factors working in Tesla's benefit, but the biggest one is as soon as the demand returns, the capacity is already in place for them to ratchet up by 20, 30, 40%. They could do it in many markets.
Thank you for that. Great commentary. Your knowledge is fantastic. I love it. I love this conversation with you. So you had Elon say at the Q2, the annual shareholder meeting, that he thinks that we're going to, was it the annual shareholder meeting? Yeah. That he thinks that we're going to, Q2 will be higher than Q1, and that he still thinks we're going to be on target for the end of the year. Do you think that that's true?
Which target? If the target's 2 million, then yes, I think absolutely, because we've got the summer months. That's a good opportunity. We've got the tax credit increasing. We're seeing that the LFP factory could be on this year. If that's the case, that means we could see rear-wheel drive models once again qualifying for credits. And yeah, if interest rates come down, there are a lot of converging elements that we could see over the next 6 months that would, all of which would increase demand. And then again, as you do increase demand, as you do increase the number of parts you're buying, your costs can go down. And they're still simplifying, they're still streamlining. So when Elon was saying that we could have a more affordable Model Y, I see all the reasons why we could in terms of the actual sale price, but also in terms of just overall affordability with interest rates and rebates.
Mm-hmm. Isn't it great though that you've got Elon talking about, the numbers are going to be lower for Q2. That I think we're all thinking that that's going to happen. But what you're saying is that by the end of this year, things should appear better. But also, there's new vehicles that they might announce. Not only the robotaxi first design that they'll unveil on August 8th, but he said maybe a more affordable car by the end of this year or first quarter next year. So even the vehicle story is improving. But what we're hearing from the institutional analysts is they're buying into this narrative change that Tesla's not just a car company. You heard that from one analyst here. Let's take a look at the other analyst. This guy is Stephen Gangaro from Stifel, and he said that Tesla is in a good position for strong multi-year growth from 2025 and beyond. See, again, these guys are looking forward now and realizing that the margins for future is going to be basically, not just cars now, not just energy. There's going to be other things that's going to add to it. That's the first time we're starting to hear them say this. So he's initiating coverage. This is initiating coverage. He hadn't had a buy rating before. He hadn't invested in Tesla yet. This is the first example, another example of one analyst who says, hey, let's take a look at this company called Tesla. 265 target price. In the near term, the electric car makers, Tesla's revamped Model 3 and upcoming Model Y refresh are likely to support sales. Having said that, I don't know if he knows, Elon said that the refresh won't be coming to the US until next year, while its next generation Model 2, set to enter production next year, should attract strong demand. The company's AI-based self-driving initiative could also generate significant value. However, the analyst knows certain near-term risk, delivery levels following the lackluster first quarter results, as well as headwinds surrounding the EV transition and the US election. What's your thoughts on the comments there?
Those are all great. So we won't see the refresh Model Y until next year. Next year starts in 6 months. So we could see it within, and I don't expect it in January. I expect it more like summer, but it could be within 6 months, according to Elon's timeline. Then you're seeing things like the headwinds surrounding the transition in the election. Well, the election will be over by November. So, I mean, hopefully that's the way it's designed. So so that should get us, regardless of who wins, what the market needs is clarity. They need confidence and a path forward. A lot of battery manufacturers have slowed their factory construction and expansion ambitions, in part because the EV makers have ordered fewer batteries and scaled back their ambitions, and in part because they don't know how much money is going to be there. So remember, on the back end of every car is a potential for a IRA battery credit to the manufacturer. On a Tesla Model 3 or Y, that could be $2,800. So $2,800 off a car that's made where batteries come out of Nevada, the car comes out of Austin or Fremont. That's a lot of money. And then if you're also getting LFP batteries, it ends up being $45, $35 for the battery cell, to $10 for the module to be assembled. That's $45 per kilowatt hour in credit. If it's LFP we're talking about, and it's established equipment from CATL that Tesla is currently installing and configuring, we could see the battery cost drop to zero. It's unlikely that you could make that battery in the US for less than $45 per kilowatt hour, but it's not insane to think. And maybe they get it only down to 65. Okay, so you've got your battery is now 2/3 off the cost. This is an advantage that other manufacturers do not yet have because they do not have domestically sourced batteries. And each year that passes, the requirements on that battery to get that credit become more strict. And so they're going to, they are uniquely positioned where they will have their own lithium refinery coming online. Of course, they have access to US steel or Canadian steel, both would qualify. So Tesla will be able to have cost of manufacturing savings that a lot of the competition cannot touch. Not in 5 years, maybe in 10. And who knows, by then I would imagine the credit will have run its course and expired.
Yeah, so the credit for the Model 3 has just been announced in the US. Right now, the Model 3, the new revised Model 3, can now take advantage of the $7,500 tax credit. I myself am going to buy one of those now that that is back. I was waiting for it and it came. Do you think that that's going to make a pop? How big of a pop is that going to do for the end of the rest of the year?
How big, we don't know, because a lot of buyers don't understand this part of it. It doesn't always appear on the sticker the way you'd want it to. When you go to the website to configure, it automatically includes that, but it also includes fuel and other savings, which may not even apply if you're using public chargers. So I think they need to adjust how you can toggle that on and off and add some clarity on the website. A little bit of outreach wouldn't hurt either, to let people know that these incentives exist and on which models. So how much of a pop? I don't know, but it convinced you to buy, and that's one unit. And you are, not that unique in that regard in the market that we could say you're the one example of someone doing that. I think it's more common than that. So we'll see.
Mm-hmm. So I was in a space yesterday, and this one of the people was saying that in order for the stock to pop, Tesla stock to jump, and you need the institutional analysts. And so what we've seen here is at least two that are saying that the narrative is changing. They're now buying into this idea of robotaxi as having something to consider. Or in general, even though the Q2 is down, they're now seeing that the future is going to be good in terms of margins. He's looking at 25, 26, 27.
If any of those pay off, give it a 1% probability and price it accordingly. 5%, give it whatever percentage you want. It has that consideration has value, even if you think it's a long shot. And you're seeing, like you just showed, there are people who are initiating coverage on Tesla now. They're just starting. That means a lot of the market has yet to wake up to what's going on. And that's especially true of international analysts who don't get to see FSD in person, who don't get to see the Cybertruck in person. And they're not even getting a complete picture of the state of Tesla as it exists today. They will come around.
So one of the overhangs that Tesla has had for a while is Elon Musk, and whether or not his commitment, number one, and two, whether or not the shareholder situation, and is he going to get his compensation, or at least the 25% voting control that he wanted. So that is a lot more likely that that's going to happen, and so everybody's feeling really good about it, including the investors. Do you think that you've seen Elon? Like, from your perspective, I mean, you really focus so much on factories and his movement with executives for building the cars. Have you seen anything that he's been doing the last several months that show you that things are moving better? Or are you, some people are thinking, well, the reason why those, Drew Bagino laugh is because there's turmoil in their plans for building those cars.
So I've talked to a lot of people about their impression of the shareholder meeting, because as you know, it happened the week we were in Michigan to do our big event. There were a lot of Tesla people, both in terms of YouTubers and analysts, but also in terms of fans. And all but maybe one of them said he looked good. This was the old Elon. And there are people, I was asked yesterday what I think of Elon as a person. And I said what I always say, which is that I am net positive on Elon. There are things about him I don't care for because he's human. And there are things about all humans I don't care for. The difference with other celebrities is that I don't get to see the parts I don't like. So I can compartmentalize and say that he is very good at running these companies. He is very good at getting the right people into the right positions to do the unthinkable and unbelievable and amazing things that other companies said were impossible. And that is his unique talent. That is his superpower. And he's got the right people. So I think I've seen some things recently that really made me shake my head, like getting rid of so much of the supercharging team, only to turn around and try and claw as many of the good ones back as possible. But he's a package deal, and you got to take it all. So if you want the amazing, you have to take some of the less than amazing. I've seen a lot of people who have renewed confidence in him as a leader and his position within the company, and believe that that their vote was not wasted in reinstating his voting to reinstate his compensation plan. And it was abundantly clear that the original one at 73% when we were all tricked, and the new one at 72% when our eyes are absolutely wide open, that is not a shift at all. That is the same number. And the plaintiffs in the lawsuit in Delaware immediately said, oh, that $5.5 billion, why don't we make it 1.5? That's desperation. You know you've got trouble. So I think the overhang is diminishing, and I think investors are satisfied.
All right. So one of the things he did say was we're expecting to have the affordable models with a plural. And he said by first half next year, and goes in maybe even the last quarter of this year. Do you have any insights at all? Have you seen any movements, or perhaps you would have said, I would have seen something happening? Which factories would you expect this to happen? And would somebody like a Joe Tegmeyer, who follows, videos all the time, would he have seen some more, development by now?
So normally I would reach out to Bob from Bob's Bibs and Bobs and ask him if he knows what he's got. And Bob is two different people, but one of them has moved to a manufacturer and the other one has retired. I am currently Bobless. So if you know something about parts and supplies, by all means, get in touch with me, because I would love to have a contact once again. The thing that you would expect to see, and there is drone footage over Fremont and Texas, what I would expect to see is a husk of a smaller car. And we've seen people think they're seeing smaller cars when it's really just a Y without the rear hatch and without the fenders. That's not it. That's a scrap car. I don't think we would see them, because I think they would be exceptionally guarded of those. And if for some reason they had to bring it out for testing, we know from a panel we did with Joe Tegmeyer, there are times when he will get a phone call from security saying, don't fly on Tuesday. And he honors that, because if he doesn't, he loses access entirely. And I asked him, what was it they didn't want you to see? And he said, how would I know? I didn't fly. So I don't think we're going to see much advance warning on the intermediate compact, one that's based on the 3 or Y, but just maybe a little bit smaller or scaled down or cheapened in some way, until they're road testing them. And I would expect 3 months of road testing. I think it'll be impossible to miss them when they come. And then that's about the timeline we've seen on other models, and it makes sense to me.
Okay, great. I did not know all that you just said. So that makes me right, because this is based on existing production lines. It's a lot harder for us to say, hey, they're delayed or they're ahead, or we found some clue.
The brake lights are going to be the same ones. The pedals are going to be a lot of it's going to be the same. We wouldn't even see it. It would just have something about it that makes it a little different and more affordable. So yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, and it can come by the end of this year. More likely, I'm sure we're all kind of expecting it next year. But still, you've got an affordable model coming out by next
Very,
year. And so
very exciting.
actually, the more leaks, the better, right? If Elon leaks this, because then analysts and investors will go, okay, so it's coming. These affordable models is finally coming. But because it's no longer the $25,000 car, the unboxed model, right? What is your
Right.
expectation for price reductions for these more affordable cars?
I think 30 to 30, well, because it's brand new, expensive out of the gate because people want them, but then it'll settle in pretty quickly. And I think 30 and under. We know Seat, who is a division of Volkswagen, was planning on a $20,000 EV. They have scrapped it in favor of a hybrid because those are just easier to make. So the competition was hoping to get out ahead of Tesla in the compact, affordable EV segment, and they are not. It is still China's arena, which they control entirely at this point in the markets where they sell them.
Okay. So in your mind, this narrative shift between investors, is it happening? And then what would you, is it because they're realize, do you think it's more because they're realizing that robotaxi and bots are truly real? Or is it more that they feel like the car business is stable and then they can rest assured that that's flattens, it causes a floor for them? Like,
So I've
you know,
heard,
we kept hearing from Gary Black, for example, his as an analyst, he kept saying, I've got to see margins stop falling. I got to see stabilization of the price. And then do you think that they're seeing that now?
well, I'm sure I've said this before. You can listen to Gary Black or you can listen to me, but it's not a black or white issue. So the thing with it is,
I've not heard you say that before. That's so good.
I have talked
That
to
is
a
so
lot
good.
of I have talked to a lot of investors, a lot of fans, a lot of analysts over the past 2-3 weeks, and all of them, almost all of them are excited, and almost all of them for different reasons. For some, it's Optimus is going to crush this. For some, it's autonomy is 6 months away. For some, it's all these new models are going to be exciting and different. For some, it's just the Cybertruck. The Cybertruck is going to dominate the market. But I have seen people who are hesitant on other of the factors. I talked with a gentleman just yesterday, a very smart guy, who was saying, I'm concerned that once the hype is over, the Cybertruck will be too expensive to get down to the price point it needs to be for mass adoption.
Mm-hmm.
And I
It's the opposite.
I don't yet have enough data to refute that. But I think the cool factor is going to last a lot longer than some people think.
Well, the reason I said it's the opposite is that the Cybertruck was designed with manufacturing first, with
Yes.
scale first. That was the reason why they did it this way, so that once they have it in scale production, it's going to be very affordable for low cost for the Tesla to make it, so they can reduce the price if they want to make this thing go.
So
whole
I
point.
thought that too, but it was originally going to be all the stainless was going to be the load bearing portion of it. And it's not. If you look at like the rear bed sides, those are held on by clips. The only load it's bearing is its own weight. Those clips cannot be, the panel is only as strong as the clips. Now it can do side impact, but you can do that with a simple steel bar. And then so I thought, well, let's make the steel thinner. And I ran that by a steel guy, and he said, no, if you make them too thin, they'll start to wobble in the wind, and that's going to create a whole different raft of problems, most namely noise and stability. So there are design objectives that were not fulfilled.
All right. Thank you so much, Brian. If you want, if you want to follow factory development and vehicle development, if you want just the black and white answers, go to check out Brian at his channel, FutureAza. First time I heard it, Brian. I love it. I got to get you and Gary on a show.
Make it happen.
Would you think so? Would you be able to?
Absolutely.
That'll be wonderful, because he's kind of in many ways a bear. He keeps saying I'm a bull, but he sold all of his stock. I mean, he barely owns any Tesla at this point. It'd be fun, black and white, the black and white show. And then the other one that you've said many times is you could be white, but you can't be Ong or something.
Yeah.
How did that go?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's either you're either white or wrong. I don't
You're
remember.
either white or wrong. Yeah, there
Yeah.
you go. Thank you so much, Brian. Love it. Follow him on his YouTube channel, FutureAza. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye. I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.